Hello and welcome to our little quick guide for CISV email management. CISV has moved all email addresses from Qmail, the old email management system, to Office 365, the Microsoft Cloud for collaboration and for a lot of other services, amongst them Exchange for email management, for sending, delivering and managing email addresses. My name is Ujke Bar. I'm a technical trainer and I want to guide you through this little quick guide. My passion is to tell people how to use technical systems. This is our administrator, Seamus Glenfinnan. He's the global email administrator and he will click us through the system and show the most important functionality. And this is Seamus with his love, Eileen Agnes. She wanted to be in the film as well. Now, Office 365 is the system to manage your emails in future. It's not Qmail anymore. You can log in to the email management console by typing outlook.office.com/ECP. You land at the login page, and at the login page you give your login credentials, which you've been given before. You enter your password. And once entered your password, you get to a request for changing the password when you first log in, of course. The password has to apply to certain constraints, 8 characters minimum. It has to contain lowercase and uppercase letters and numbers, or maybe even symbols. 3 out of 4 of these topics. Once done, you can log in and you find yourself in the Exchange Admin Center, the Exchange Control Panel ECP. There's a couple of things in there, but the most important section that you need to know and where you need to work to manage your email addresses is actually the recipients section. You can get to the different areas by clicking the links or by clicking recipients here. In groups, you will find the distribution lists just as you've had them in Qmail, just a little more structured. In contacts, you can find all the different persons and all the different contacts that you want to send emails to and that you want to appear in the system. Now, one thing is important. Exchange thinks person-centric. In contrary to Qmail, where you've just put in an address, any address that you've gotten, you could put into a list and that would be available for emails being sent to. In contrary to that, Qmail capability Exchange assumes that every record here in this list is actually an individual, a person with a personal email address, so it's more difficult to create the same name with different email addresses, and we'll see how we can manage that. Now, to begin with, of course, it all looks very, very messy. It isn't actually, because it's pretty easy to find your stuff in Exchange Online once you know how. The first possibility is, of course, the looking glass. You click to the looking glass, you type in some string of a person you know, and you find persons who apply to that string. I've used Jonas, or actually Seamus has used Jonas here, and as you can see, it not only finds Jonas's, it only finds Jonasson, which contains the term Jonas. But there's also a More button here, where you can click Advanced Search. A new dialog opens up, where you can use fields to narrow down your search. And as Seamus will show here, we have used the department field of all entries to be filled with the 2-digit ISO code of every national and PA. Now, if we would like to find the Italian addresses, we can just type in IT and the list would be narrowed down to only show Italian records. Or Mongolia, as in this example, which would only show Mongolian entries. Now let's assume we have a new person helping in our national chapter. And that person shall receive a CISV.org email address. What we do is we create a mail user by clicking to the plus sign, and in the dialog that opens, we start filling the fields with the appropriate information. We choose the first name and the last name of the person and fill it in the appropriate fields, and the system suggests a display name. Then in the next field, we have to enter the external email address of the person, the one that the person owns. Oops, an error, Seamus, you can't use an email address here. That's the alias field. In the alias field, you have to use just a random name, and I always suggest to just use the email address and replace the @ sign with an underscore, because @ signs are not allowed. The email address is being used in external email addresses, you can see here, and user ID is being filled with the actual name of the person. And in the domain portion at the right side, you choose the country. In this case, we choose Norway, so it's no.cisv.org. And by that, you have given the person a CISV email address. At the end, you have to set a password for that user. You just choose a random password for them because the password is never needed actually. Nobody really needs to log in except for you, of course, to manage the email addresses. So you can just forget the password, just choose anything. Oh, there's an error when having clicked save. Obviously the person is already in the system. Now here comes in place how Exchange Online thinks about email addresses here. They always assume individuals. In this case, we have to mitigate by either change the name or add something to the name which makes the person an individual. So we have to change some of the fields. We click OK to the dialog, and we could, for instance, just add Jonas Christiansen and call him Christiansen new, or maybe better, maybe he's the pa of one of our kids, and so he's Jonas Christiansen senior in this case. Of course, we also add that to the email address because the email address is taken as well. And now we can save the person, and once he's saved, he pops up in the list. By double-clicking or clicking the pencil on top, we open up another dialog, and there's a few more information we can use to further fill information about that person. On the one hand, there's contact information, but most importantly, there's organization. And if you remember what I said before, the department field we use here for the 2-digit ISO code. That will make your search easier. It's not a mandatory field, but if you always fill it correctly, then it will make you able to find the person easily again. The other fields you can choose to your liking. In mail addresses, you again see the email addresses, the CISV, as well as the external one, and in member of, you would later see the groups that this person is part of. At the moment, he's not part of any group. Now we got Jonas Christensen in the field. Don't bother about the external email address missing. That's just a little bug of the system. Once you've clicked refresh, you will notice that the external email address is correctly there. Also, you see the other Jonas Christensens that are there. So now we got a person with a CISV.org address who can be emailed to by this address, and we find them also by using the department field, and we can also choose mail user. Then the system would only list the mail users. Now let's assume Jonas Christensen is very, very good at fundraising and he wants to support our national with fundraising. Of course, we want him to be part of the list that is being used when fundraisers are emailed to. Now we go to the groups section in the Exchange Control Panel. Here we find all the groups in the system, and again we can use search methods to drill down and filter down the groups. We can type fundraising, but of course still there's a lot of fundraising lists in the system, as you can see here. So there's another option also with groups. Also here we got the More button, we got Advanced Search, and Advanced Search here works a little different from Advanced Search in the Contact section. As you can see from the dialog, there's less fields, but there's a More Options link. And when you click that More Options link, you can set a condition. The condition that you choose here is the Managed By condition. It's on the bottom. you choose Managed By, and with Managed By you have the possibility to search. We have chosen to have all groups being managed by a dedicated group for every national. So in this case, we want to have the Norwegian groups, so we choose the Norway.exchange admin group, which you can just find by typing in no.exc. You see Norway Exchange Admins. So now the dialog says find all items that are managed by Norway Exchange Admins. You click OK, and it drills down to the results, and it's only Norwegian groups. Now we can type in any string on top, like for instance finance, and in finance you would only find the finance groups of Norway. And let's say we type in, what is it that Seamus types? It's youth meetings, so we find the youth meeting groups from Norway, and so on and so forth. So the advanced search criteria here in the group section stays in place, and by typing in the strings you can easily find your lists. Managed by there's an exchange admin group for every country. So whatever you want to find in here, you can use these groups for. Now fundraising, oh, we don't have a fundraising group. I thought Seamus would find the fundraising group now. Well, then in this case we need to create that group. What we do is we go to the little arrow here. We don't go to new Office 365 group. That's a type of groups that we can use later on in future, maybe when we introduce more services. And it's also harder to manage. For emailing, it's totally sufficient to use new distribution group. So we just choose new, the little arrow, and distribution group, and with clicking that link, a dialog opens, which again tells us that we should use an Office 365 distribution group, but as said, we don't need that. So in display name, we just enter a string which is being displayed by the system. Seamus told me that he always likes to use the email address of the group itself as a display name. Makes it easier to be found. As an alias, we use that as well. Again, exchange the @ sign by the underscore and use the prefix portion without the domain, of course, for the address. In the domain field, choose the right country, and then we got a few more fields which are important. Owner. You have to choose the exchange admin groups, the right one for your country, and have to enter them here. That makes it easier for you to find the group. Also, that allows you to manage the group afterwards once you've saved it. So that's an important bit to be added. Then at the bottom of the page, we have a little checkbox which says add these owners as members. You don't do that, because you're part of that exchange admin group. Obviously, also Seamus is part of that group, and you don't want every email being sent to that group being delivered also to you or to Seamus. By the way, Seamus would go in and cross that off anyway if you cross it. So don't do that. And in the next field, you could already add the members. You could add the members that shall receive emails when they are sent to this group. Of course, we use the dialog to find Jonas again. You can use the same search methods as with the original contacts dialog. You find Jonas Christensen that you've just created. You add it by clicking add and click OK, and he's a member of the group. In the bottom portion of the dialog, you can choose whether it's possible that everybody can enter this distribution list, or only you can manage that. It's not utterly important to set that correctly. However, we do recommend that you set it to closed. That keeps you in control of how this distribution group is managed. Later on, that might be important. When done, click Save. And then by just typing in the string that we have just chosen, fundraising.all, you can find your distribution list. You can of course use the other search methods as well, but I think typing the string is just the easiest method now. Now we have to do a few more settings to that group. Of course, you can again see all the settings that you've already done. I do recommend to hide the group from an address list so that not everybody sees it who are able to work with Outlook in the system. Nobody does that at the moment, but for the future that might be interesting. In membership, we can also add more persons. Let's assume we have a guy called Lars who is also very capable of doing fundraising for Norway. So we want to add him to the group instantly. Then there is again the setting with the membership approval, and this one here is very important because we do want that everybody, be it inside CISV or outside CISV, is capable of sending emails to that group. And therefore, you do need to keep that setting in mind. You have to say, senders inside and outside of my organization are allowed to send emails. So please keep in mind that you always go into your group newly created, do that setting, otherwise it'll not be possible to send emails to that group. That's just how Exchange Online manages email distribution groups. Once this is done, you click Save again and you have the setting in the system. And there you have your distribution group with 2 guys in it. Now let's assume there's another guy who is capable of helping with fundraising and we want him to receive emails. But that guy for some reason doesn't need any CISV address. So what do we do here? How can we get that address into the group? First, we have to go back to contacts. We have to click New, and now we use a mail contact. So mail contacts are guys who are not needing a CISV.org or xxcisv.org address. We just type in the name, first name and last name, and again the system suggests a display name where you can see the guy in the system. Then we type an external email address again. So the person has to give us the external email address by which they are reachable in the end. Oh, again, Seamus, don't do that error again. In alias, we can use the external email address with an underscore, and in the external email address field, the email address has to go. And that's it. That's just simply creating an address. It's just an address that the system knows, nothing more. No mailbox, no user, no CISV address, nothing. You just click Save. The person is there. The person can be used to being added to a distribution list. But before we do that, quickly back into the fields, into the additional fields, and set the department field to the 2-digit ISO code again. Norway. That makes it easier to find him later. And that's it. Now we got the guy in the system and we want to have them in the fundraising list. You see that the search fields are still left unchanged, so you can easily go back to your list. You go to membership, click the plus sign, find the person in the system again. It's the fundraiser expert that we've chosen before. A typo. Come on, Seamus, be a little bit more careful. Fundraiser expert here. Add it by double clicking or click add. Save the list and it's done. Now let's just summarize quickly what we've seen in that little quick guide. First of all, we have created a CISV.org address, an xxcisv.org address for a person who wants to support our national or chapters with their skills. Whenever email gets sent to their CISV.org address, it's being delivered to their personal address. Then we've created a distribution group, a distribution list, which can contain as much members as possible, and every email that is being sent to that group is being delivered to every member. Then we've added the person to it, and we have added an additional person to the group who also wants to help. And then we have created an external email address, just a mail contact, and added them to the list as well. When we are done with that, we can go to the upper right hand corner, click sign out, and we are done with Office 365. I do hope that you have enjoyed that little quick guide. And finally, I want to give a few information and instructions and a few links maybe which can help you with getting along with it. So first of all, who can access the Exchange Control Panel to manage CISV email addresses? It's national secretaries and national email coordinators. We only allow access to the system for these persons. So make sure that you are named and listed as a national secretary or national email coordinator in the CISV Nationals and Chapters directory on My CISV. Second, how do you approach us when you want to manage the email addresses? Every national secretary and named email coordinator have their accounts already prepared in the system. However, we need to reset the password and hand over the password to you for being able to enter it. What you do is you send a little email where you claim access to Exchange Online to the address support@cisv.org. It's being received by either Seamus Glenfinnan or a couple of other guys helping with support with that system, and they will reset the password for you, send you your login credentials and password. At the first login, you will be asked to change that password to your liking, and then you can enter the system just as shown. Now, another thing that is important to be known, as you have seen, we are dealing with sensible information here. All email addresses are in. We are working on a method to reduce the visibility of email addresses. However, that is not yet easily supported by Microsoft, and therefore we need to ask for a truly sensible treatment of the information you see here. That is also why we only grant access to the system for national email coordinators, named, and national secretaries. Also, we would like to ask you to not pass on your credentials to any other person. We have to be very strict here because we are dealing with important information. So please use your credentials only by yourselves and don't pass it on. Once again, thank you for watching. Thanks for joining us here and my little vlog with the explanation of the CISV email management system, the new one. I hope you enjoy the system. I hope you like it, and whenever there's questions, you can also direct them to the support email address support@cisv.org. Thanks very much for watching and enjoy your email management.